Good evening, everyone. H. Life is creation or destruction, light or darkness. Yet, sometimes we encounter people who radiate deeply destructive presence, what you might call evil. But let me remind you, evil is not a grand creature with horns and fire. It is subtle, insidious, and thrives in the unnoticed corners of our interactions. Now, when you encounter such a being, the question is not how to destroy them, but how not to allow their darkness to take root in you. Let us look at the signs of such a presence, not in judgment, but in awareness, for awareness is the only true light that dissolves all shadows. Our deception. When a person wears the mask of truth while weaving a web of lies, they embody one of the most insidious traits of darkness. Deception is not just about telling lies, it's an art of distortion. These individuals twist reality to suit their agenda, making you question what is real and what is not. The truly deceptive person doesn't simply lie to you, they manipulate the very foundation of your perception. They may sprinkle just enough truth into their words to make their falsehoods believable. They craft stories, explanations, and excuses that seem logical, even compelling, but their sole aim is to control, exploit, or manipulate. It's not always obvious, though. The harm they cause can be subtle, like planting seeds of doubt in your mind or making you feel guilty for things you haven't done. You might feel confused in their presence, as if something doesn't quite align, but you can't put your finger on it. This confusion is their weapon. It keeps you entangled in their lies. It's like being in a room where the air is laced with an invisible poison. You may not see it, but you feel its effects. Such people are often skilled at presenting themselves as trustworthy. They can charm you, gain your confidence, and appear to be the solution to your problems. But beneath that surface is an intention to use you, to extract from you, whether it's your resources, your energy, or even your sense of self-worth. The greatest danger of relentless deception is not the lies themselves, but the impact they have on your clarity. You start doubting your instincts, your ability to discern right from wrong. Over time, the deception clouds your inner compass, leaving you vulnerable and disconnected from your truth. How then do you protect yourself? Awareness is your shield. When you feel that nagging doubt or sense of unease, don't ignore it. Pay attention to inconsistencies, no matter how small. Truth has a certain simplicity. It doesn't require elaborate explanations or justifications. Lies, on the other hand, are complex, layered, and often crumble under scrutiny. So, question everything not in paranoia, but with clarity and calmness. Seek the truth, not from their words, but from your own perception and intuition. When you encounter relentless deception, understand that it is not your duty to fix the deceiver. Your responsibility is to safeguard your own clarity, your own truth. Deception only thrives where there is blindness. So, open your eyes wide and let the light of awareness burn away the shadows of falsehood. Manipulation is perhaps one of the most subtle and damaging forms of darkness a person can bring into your life. Unlike outright aggression, which you can see and recognize, manipulation works quietly, like an unseen hand guiding your thoughts, emotions, and actions without you even realizing it. It is the art of control disguised as concern, persuasion cloaked in care, and exploitation masked as love or friendship. A manipulative person doesn't force you into doing what they want, they make you believe it was your choice all along. They are skilled at reading your emotions, identifying your vulnerabilities, and using them to their advantage. Often, these individuals craft situations where you feel obligated to act in their favor. They create emotional debts, small acts of kindness or support that later come with unspoken expectations of repayment. And when you don't comply, they may guilt-trip you or question your loyalty, leaving you feeling as though you are the one at fault. What makes manipulation so sinister is that it preys on your trust. These individuals often position themselves as allies, confidants, or mentors. They speak in ways that make you feel valued, understood, and even dependent on them. But this is not genuine care. It is a calculated move to gain leverage over you. They might use flattery to inflate your ego or criticism to undermine your confidence, all to keep you within their control. Another common tactic is creating confusion. Manipulative people excel at playing both sides of a situation. They might tell you one thing and someone else the opposite, ensuring they hold the power in any conflict. By doing so, they keep you unsure of who to trust and where you stand. In this haze of uncertainty, they remain the only constant, the one person you feel you can rely on. But this reliance is their trap. The ultimate goal of manipulation is to strip you of your autonomy. They want you to question your instincts, doubt your decisions, and become dependent on their guidance. Over time, you might feel drained, as if your very sense of self is eroding. You may start to notice that your needs, desires, and boundaries are being ignored or overridden, replaced by theirs. How then do you recognize and resist such manipulation? The first step is self-awareness. Pay close attention to how you feel around certain people. Do you often leave interactions with them feeling guilty, anxious, or confused? Do they dismiss your feelings or make you question your worth? These are red flags that cannot be ignored. The second step is reclaiming your boundaries. A manipulative person thrives where there are blurred lines, so make yours clear and unwavering. You do not owe anyone endless explanations for your choices or endless accommodations at the expense of your well-being. Assert your right to say no without feeling guilt. And lastly, trust your inner compass. Manipulation works by disconnecting you from your intuition, so the greatest antidote is reconnecting with your inner truth. When you feel that something is off, listen to it. You don't need to justify that feeling to anyone. It is your anchor in a world that others may try to distort. Remember, manipulation only holds power if you allow it to. The moment you see it for what it is, it begins to lose its grip. Stand firm in your awareness, and no one can twist your path away from what is true and right for you. Lack of empathy is one of the most defining and unsettling characteristics of a person whose intentions are rooted in darkness. Empathy is the ability to feel, understand, and resonate with the emotions of others. It is the thread that weaves us together as human beings. Without it, a person becomes cold, disconnected, and incapable of true compassion. They view relationships not as a space for mutual care, but as a means to an end, often treating others as tools rather than as individuals with thoughts, emotions, and worth. When you encounter someone who lacks empathy, their behavior can be perplexing and deeply unsettling. They may appear indifferent to the pain or struggles of others. If you share a vulnerable moment, instead of offering support or understanding, they may dismiss your feelings, trivialize your experiences, or even exploit your vulnerability. To them, emotions are not something to honor but something to manipulate or ignore. You might find that they show interest in you only when it benefits them, but the moment your needs or pain demand attention, they withdraw, dismiss, or belittle you. A person devoid of empathy cannot genuinely celebrate your joy either. They might feign interest, but there is often an undercurrent of offense or even resentment when you share your successes. They see your happiness not as something to be shared, but as something that diminishes their own standing. Empathy allows people to connect deeply with one another, to celebrate and mourn together, to feel a sense of shared humanity. Without it, relationships become hollow, one-sided, and transactional. What's particularly troubling is that those who lack empathy often wear masks of charm and charisma. They might appear warm, attentive, and caring initially, but this facade quickly crumbles when deeper emotional connections or sacrifices are required. You may notice a stark contrast between how they treat people who can offer them something and those who cannot. Their kindness is often reserved for situations where they stand to gain, but when there's no personal benefit, their indifference reveals itself. The danger of being in close proximity to such a person lies in the subtle erosion of your emotional well-being. Over time, you may start to question your own feelings, doubting whether your emotions are valid or if you're simply too sensitive. This is the impact of their coldness. It creates a void where emotional warmth and connection should exist, leaving you feeling isolated and unseen. The question then arises, how do you navigate relationships with someone who lacks empathy? First, it is important to understand that their inability to connect emotionally is not something you can fix or change. Empathy is not a skill you can teach someone who lacks the fundamental capacity for it. What you can do, however, is protect yourself. Pay attention to patterns. Do they consistently ignore your feelings or fail to respond to your emotional needs? Do they show a complete lack of regard for the impact of their actions on others? These are signs that you are dealing with someone whose emotional depth is absent or deeply compromised. Set boundaries that safeguard your emotional health. You don't need to explain or justify your feelings to someone who dismisses them. Recognize that their indifference is not a reflection of your worth but of their limitations. Surround yourself with people who nurture and respect your emotions and avoid wasting energy on those who cannot or will not reciprocate your care. Ultimately, a lack of empathy creates a void, a space devoid of connection, understanding, and humanity. It's a stark reminder that not all who walk among us are capable of being part of the shared human experience. But you don't have to let the void consume you. Instead, anchor yourself in your own capacity for empathy and surround yourself with those who reflect it back. In doing so, you cultivate a life that is rich with emotional depth, even when faced with those who cannot share it. There are some people in this world who seem to thrive on conflict, as though disharmony fuels them and discord is their natural element. Unlike most of us who seek peace and resolution in our lives, these individuals actively create and perpetuate chaos. They seem to take a strange satisfaction in the tensions they stir, the arguments they provoke, and the fractures they cause in relationships and communities. This behavior isn't always loud or obvious. A person who thrives on conflict may not appear aggressive at first glance. Instead, they might operate in subtler ways, whispering criticisms behind closed doors, planting seeds of doubt or pitting people against one another. They may use gossip as a weapon, spreading half-truths or outright lies to ignite misunderstandings and fuel disputes. These actions are rarely accidental. Such individuals are often highly calculated, knowing exactly what strings to pull and when to pull them. What drives someone to thrive on conflict? At the root of it lies a deep sense of insecurity and a craving for control. By creating chaos, they position themselves at the center of attention, whether as the instigator, the supposed mediator, or the victim. This role gives them a sense of importance and power. In a peaceful environment, they may feel overlooked or irrelevant, but in a turbulent one, they suddenly become indispensable. The more people depend on them to resolve or navigate the conflict, the more control they gain. Another hallmark of such individuals is their uncanny ability to escalate situations. Where others seek compromise, they fan the flames. If a disagreement arises, they may exaggerate it or add layers of drama to ensure it becomes a full-blown argument. Even when harmony seems within reach, they might introduce new problems or revive old grievances to keep the conflict alive. For them, peace is not a desirable state, it is a threat to the control they derive from disorder. What makes dealing with these people particularly challenging is their mastery of emotional manipulation. They are skilled at deflecting blame and justifying their behavior. If confronted, they may play the victim, claiming that others have wronged or misunderstood them. Alternatively, they might project their own toxic tendencies onto others, accusing them of being the source of the problem. This deflection makes it difficult to hold them accountable, as they create a fog of confusion and self-doubt around those they target. One of the most destructive aspects of this behavior is its impact on relationships. A person who thrives on conflict can erode trust between friends, family members, or colleagues. They exploit vulnerabilities, expose divisions, and amplify misunderstandings, leaving behind a trail of broken connections and emotional wounds. Over time, their presence can create a toxic environment where people feel constantly on edge, never knowing when the next conflict will erupt. So, how do you recognize and protect yourself from someone who thrives on conflict? The first step is to observe patterns. Are they frequently at the center of arguments or disputes? Do they seem to instigate or prolong conflicts rather than resolve them? Do you notice a sense of relief when they are absent, as though the atmosphere becomes lighter and more peaceful? These are strong indicators that you are dealing with someone who feeds off chaos. Once you identify such behavior, the next step is to disengage. It's tempting to confront or challenge these individuals, but doing so often plays into their hands, giving them more material to work with. Instead, maintain your composure and refuse to be drawn into their games. Set clear boundaries and do not allow yourself to be provoked. Remember, their power lies in their ability to disturb your inner peace. When you remain calm and centered, you deny them that power. Another key strategy is to seek clarity and truth in your relationships with others. A person who thrives on conflict often relies on miscommunication and misunderstanding to achieve their goals. By fostering open and honest communication with those around you, you can neutralize their efforts to divide and destabilize. Ultimately, the most important thing to remember is that their chaos does not have to become your chaos. While they may seek to draw you into their web of conflict, you have the power to step back, observe, and choose peace instead. Their need for discord reflects their inner turmoil, not yours. By refusing to engage, you protect your energy, your relationships, and your sense of balance. Peace is not just the absence of conflict, it is a choice, one you can make regardless of the chaos others try to create around you. Habitual exploitation is a deeply rooted behavior in some individuals, an almost instinctive tendency to use others for their own benefit. It's not a rare mistake or a moment of poor judgment. It's a pattern, a way of living, where they consistently prioritize their own gain at the expense of others. These individuals see relationships not as mutual exchanges of care or respect, but as opportunities to extract something, be it money, time, resources, or emotional support. What makes habitual exploitation particularly insidious is that it often goes unnoticed in the beginning. People who engage in this behavior are rarely overt or clumsy. They may start by presenting themselves as kind, generous, or even vulnerable. They create the illusion of being someone who deserves your help or trust, drawing you into their orbit. But over time, the relationship reveals itself to be one-sided. Their requests and demands increase, yet their contributions remain minimal or non-existent. They take, and take, leaving you drained while giving little to nothing in return. Such individuals are masters of manipulation. They often appeal to your sense of duty, guilt, or compassion to achieve their ends. For example, they might frame their requests in ways that make you feel obligated to say yes, as though refusing would make you selfish or unkind. They might play the victim, recounting tales of hardship and struggle to compel you to come to their aid. And while there's nothing wrong with helping someone in genuine need, the difference here is that these individuals exploit your kindness repeatedly and without any intention of reciprocating or improving their situation. One of the hallmarks of habitual exploitation is its unrelenting nature. Once an exploiter identifies you as someone they can manipulate, they will return again and again. Their demands might range from small favors to significant sacrifices, but the common thread is that they never consider the impact of their actions on you. Your time, energy, and boundaries mean nothing to them. They are solely focused on fulfilling their own needs and desires. And when you begin to resist or draw boundaries, they often retaliate using guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail, or outright anger to coerce you back into compliance. What's particularly damaging about habitual exploitation is its long-term impact on the exploited person. Over time, you might begin to feel resentful, drained, and unappreciated. You may even start doubting your own worth, wondering if you are only valuable to others when you're giving something. This erosion of self-esteem is one of the most harmful outcomes of being caught in such a dynamic. It's also worth noting that habitual exploiters are not always obvious villains. Some of them may genuinely believe they're entitled to what they take. They might rationalize their actions, convincing themselves that their needs are greater or more urgent than yours. This self-centered worldview blinds them to the harm they cause, making it nearly impossible for them to change. So how can you protect yourself from habitual exploitation? The first step is awareness. Pay attention to patterns in your relationships. Are you always the one giving, supporting, or sacrificing while the other person offers little in return? Do you feel a sense of dread or obligation when they approach you, knowing they'll ask for something? These are signs that you might be caught in an exploitative dynamic. Once you recognize the behavior, the next step is to set firm boundaries. This can be difficult, especially if the exploiter is someone close to you, but it's essential for your well-being. Start by saying no to small requests and observe their reaction. A healthy relationship can withstand a refusal, but an exploiter will likely push back either through guilt, manipulation, or anger. This response confirms their true intentions and reinforces the importance of maintaining your boundaries. It's also important to cultivate relationships with people who respect and value you for who you are, not what you can provide. Surround yourself with individuals who see you as an equal, who offer as much as they take, and who genuinely care about your well-being. These connections will help you rebuild your confidence and remind you of what a balanced, healthy relationship looks like. Lastly, understand that walking away from a habitual exploiter is not selfish, it is necessary. You are not obligated to sacrifice your energy, resources, or happiness for someone who refuses to reciprocate or change. Your worth is not measured by how much you can give to others, but by the value you place on your own well-being. Habitual exploitation thrives in the absence of awareness and boundaries. The moment you recognize it for what it is and take steps to protect yourself, its power diminishes. By choosing to honor your own needs and surround yourself with relationships rooted in mutual respect, you create a life that is not defined by being used, but by being valued. Unapologetic harm is one of the most glaring signs of a person operating from a place of darkness. It is not just about causing pain or damage, but about doing so without remorse, guilt, or accountability. This behavior reveals a complete disregard for the feelings, well-being, and humanity of others. When someone causes harm and refuses to acknowledge it, let alone make amends, it's a clear indication that their actions stem from a lack of empathy, self-awareness, or even basic decency. Such individuals often operate with an air of entitlement, as though their actions are above scrutiny or their needs justify any harm they cause. They may dismiss the suffering they inflict, minimize it, or even blame the victim for it. For them, admitting fault or taking responsibility is not an option, because to do so would require humility and vulnerability, traits they either lack or see as weaknesses. Unapologetic harm is often accompanied by a sense of arrogance. These individuals may feel that they are always right, that their perspective is the only valid one, and that any criticism of their behavior is an attack rather than an opportunity for growth. If confronted, they might deflect blame, accuse others of being too sensitive, or shift the focus entirely to avoid accountability. Their unwillingness to face the consequences of their actions creates a cycle of harm, as they continue to act with impunity, leaving a trail of emotional, psychological, or even physical damage in their wake. This kind of harm can manifest in many ways. In relationships, it might look like betrayal, dishonesty, or neglect, followed by a complete lack of regret. In the workplace, it could involve exploiting colleagues, taking credit for others' work, or creating a toxic environment without acknowledging the fallout. On a larger scale, unapologetic harm can appear in societal contexts where individuals or groups perpetuate injustice while refusing to recognize or address the suffering they cause. One of the most painful aspects of dealing with someone who causes unapologetic harm is the emotional toll it takes on those around them. Victims of such behavior are often left feeling invalidated, invisible, or powerless. When someone refuses to acknowledge the hurt they've caused, it can lead to feelings of frustration, anger, and even self-doubt. You might find yourself questioning whether the harm was real or if you're overreacting simply because the person responsible is so dismissive of your pain. But unapologetic harm is not just about what they do, it's also about what they fail to do. A sincere apology has the power to heal wounds, rebuild trust, and restore balance in relationships. It is an acknowledgement of shared humanity, a recognition that we all make mistakes, but have the capacity to learn from them. When someone refuses to apologize, they deny you that closure, leaving the wound open and unresolved. Their refusal is not just an omission, it is a statement that your feelings, your experience, and your worth do not matter to them. How then do you protect yourself from someone who perpetuates unapologetic harm? The first step is to recognize that their lack of accountability is not a reflection of your value. Their refusal to apologize does not diminish the reality of the harm they've caused. Your pain is valid whether or not they acknowledge it. Next, it is crucial to set clear boundaries. These individuals often operate without regard for limits, so you must be firm in protecting your emotional and mental space. This might mean limiting contact, refusing to engage in arguments, or even removing them from your life entirely if their behavior is consistently harmful. Equally important is the act of self-validation. When someone refuses to acknowledge the harm they've caused, it can leave you feeling isolated and unseen. In these moments, it's essential to remind yourself of your truth. Speak your pain, even if it's only to yourself or a trusted confidant. Seek support from those who understand and validate your experiences. Surround yourself with people who respect you and value your feelings, as they can provide the affirmation that unapologetic individuals withhold. Finally, let go of the expectation that you will receive an apology or acknowledgement from such a person. Holding onto that hope can keep you tethered to their behavior, waiting for something they are unwilling or unable to give. Instead, focus on your own healing and growth. Forgiveness, if you choose to offer it, does not have to be for their benefit. It can be for your own freedom and peace of mind. Unapologetic harm thrives in an environment where accountability is absent and self-respect is compromised. By recognizing it for what it is, standing firm in your boundaries, and refusing to let their behavior define your worth, you reclaim your power. Their refusal to take responsibility is a reflection of their limitations, not yours. You have the strength to rise above their actions, to heal, and to create a life free from the shadow of their harm. Suffocating energy is one of the most draining and overwhelming traits a person can bring into your life. It is not simply the presence of negativity or a bad mood. It is an all-encompassing, oppressive force that consumes the space around you. These individuals seem to carry an invisible weight that they are all too eager to unload onto others. Their presence can make a room feel smaller, conversations feel heavier, and even your own thoughts seem less clear. Over time, exposure to this kind of energy can leave you feeling depleted, anxious, and emotionally suffocated. What makes suffocating energy particularly difficult to deal with is how deeply it infiltrates your interactions. These individuals often monopolize your time and attention, pulling you into their world of endless drama, complaints, or emotional turmoil. They rarely pause to consider how their presence affects others because they are consumed by their own needs, frustrations, or desires. It's as if they view you not as a separate individual, but as an extension of themselves, someone who exists solely to absorb their problems, fulfill their demands, or validate their feelings. The hallmark of suffocating energy is its relentlessness. It doesn't come and go, it lingers, clinging to every interaction and seeping into every moment. Conversations with these individuals can feel like a one-way street, where they pour out their grievances, frustrations, or anxieties, leaving little room for you to express yourself. They may interrupt, dominate discussions, or dismiss your thoughts entirely, steering every interaction back to their own concerns. Over time, this can create a sense of imbalance in the relationship where your needs and boundaries are consistently overshadowed by their demands. Such individuals also have a way of amplifying problems rather than resolving them. Even minor issues can become catastrophic in their hands as they magnify every challenge, overthink every situation, and spread their anxiety to those around them. Their inability or unwillingness to find solutions often leaves you feeling as though you are carrying the weight of their problems alongside your own. And no matter how much support or advice you offer, it's never enough. They thrive on the attention and emotional labor of others, but rarely take steps to improve their circumstance. What makes suffocating energy even more harmful is its impact on your mental and emotional well-being. Being around such a person can feel like being trapped, unable to breathe or think clearly. Their constant need for attention and validation can leave you feeling drained, as though your own energy is being siphoned away to sustain them. You might notice yourself feeling irritable, exhausted, or even resentful after spending time with them. Over time, this dynamic can erode your sense of self as you become so focused on their needs that you lose sight of your own. Suffocating energy can also manifest in more subtle ways. It might be the friend who insists on knowing every detail of your life, questioning your decisions, and offering unsolicited advice. It could be the family member who guilts you into spending time with them, even when you're overwhelmed or busy. Or it might be the colleague who constantly seeks reassurance, offloads their workload onto you, or creates an atmosphere of tension and stress in the office. In all these cases, the common thread is their inability or refusal to respect your boundaries and give you the space to breathe. The question then is how to protect yourself from such energy. The first step is to recognize it for what it is. Pay attention to how you feel after interacting with someone. Do you feel lighter, inspired, or supported? Or do you feel weighed down, drained, or emotionally overwhelmed? If it's the latter, you may be dealing with a person whose energy is suffocating. Once you've identified the source, it's important to set firm boundaries. This doesn't mean cutting them off entirely, though in some cases that may be necessary, but it does mean clearly defining what you are and are not willing to tolerate. For example, if they consistently call you to vent late at night, let them know that you need that time to rest and can only talk during the day. If they dominate every conversation, gently but firmly redirect the discussion or excuse yourself when they refuse to share the space. It's also important to manage your own energy and prioritize self-care. Spending time in nature, practicing mindfulness, or engaging in activities that bring you joy can help you recharge and maintain your sense of balance. Surround yourself with people who uplift and support you, as their positive energy can counteract the draining effects of a suffocating presence. Finally, understand that you are not responsible for fixing someone else's emotional state. It's natural to want to help those you care about, but there's a fine line between offering support and being consumed by their energy. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and allowing their suffocating presence to take over your life will only harm you in the long run. Suffocating energy is a force that can pull you down if you let it, but it doesn't have to define your experience. By recognizing it, setting boundaries, and prioritizing your own well-being, you can protect yourself from its effects and create space for more balanced, uplifting relationships. Your energy is precious, and it is worth safeguarding from those who seek to drain it without regard for your needs.